Thank you very, very much for giving up your time to come and spend it with us to talk about a topic that's very, very close to all of our hearts, I'm sure. I am Sharon Rush. I'm a trainer, facilitator, presenter, coach, and I'm here with my gorgeous colleagues who are down in the corner here, who I'm trying not to look at, and we are Vital Smarts. We have our head office in the US, and we have a recently opened new London office. And so we're absolutely delighted to be here to talk to you this afternoon. I wonder, when we talk about costly conversations, I'm wondering whether when we talk about the cost, whether that's just about the money or whether that's about something else. So I'd love to really spend the next 20 minutes exploring the topic with you, if I may, and then take some questions afterwards, if that's all right. That would be fantastic. But we are going to have a little bit of interaction as we go through the 20 minutes. I'm not going to be constantly talking at you, because I know how, especially after lunch, as we often once called it, the graveyard shift, where everybody catches up on a little bit of a sleep. You can do that if you want to. Personally, I won't be doing that. I'll keep us going if that's all right. So I wonder then, have you ever found yourself in an interaction with someone, either on the telephone or face-to-face or even over an email, and as you're interacting with them, you have another voice going on inside of your head? So what's coming out of your mouth is one conversation, but you might have another conversation going on up here. I'm seeing some nods around the room. I'm not going to ask people to put their hands up. What about then to the other extreme, where you've having an interaction with someone, telephone, face-to-face, email, and you say exactly what you think and feel about what's going on? And you kind of leave that meeting thinking, ooh, I think I've just made it worse. Oh, and I'm definitely getting some faces around the room now. Maybe that's what's really going on for you. But then what about the conversation, the same conversation that you have with the same person about the same topic, and it never, ever, ever moves you closer to the result? Exhausting? Do you know those kind of conversations? Then typically it could be as a result of spending some time with us here that you might realise that perhaps you're having the wrong conversation. So this is where we look at why results don't happen. Why do people in our organisations not do the things we want them to do so that we can move towards the goal and the result that we're looking for? Okay, so what we're really saying is, what would it take for an initiative or a project to fail? So what are some of the things that happen in organisations that we know maybe a project's not on? The very obvious things, the very tangible things. What do you see? Delays. Delays in the deadline, delays in people doing their actions. Okay, what else do you see? Lack of buy-in, maybe a bit of resistance to change if it's going to be a massive change across the organisation. Yeah, and we see deadlines changing, and we see people perhaps not being totally committed to the project. What we also see, though, or rather we don't see, but maybe we might sense or we might feel, because we've got this kind of little conversation going on, in this mind talk going on inside of our heads, we will see the underlying lack of, perhaps, commitment, engagement, confidence, self-esteem. And what we notice across all the organisations that we go into, and we have, I know, for instance, for myself, I've been working with these products for the last 10 years, and I have the most amazing job where I can travel all over the world and see people and talk to people about the issues that they're struggling with in organisations. And we know through our research, and we know from our personal experiences, that there are probably 3 key challenges in organisations today. And we could even perhaps label those as viruses, the viruses that attack culture. Do you know what I mean by that? So what I'm saying is, what we've identified is the culture of the virus that attacks an organisation, which is the virus of silence. People see things happening and they just tell themselves, that's not my job. Someone isn't being held accountable here, but I'm not going to say anything, because it's not my job, or I don't have the skills, or I don't have the confidence, or I don't have the self-esteem. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to say anything. And they'll go away and talk to other people about it. The culture of collusion. So lack of accountability. Project team are meeting, everybody's talking about their action points. You know you haven't done yours, but you know that the project leader won't hold you accountable, because if he does, you're going to have to hold him accountable. So it's that unspoken lack of accountability in organisations where people overlook people not meeting commitments, breaking promises, and demonstrating perhaps the behaviours that we don't want in certain cultures. And then we have the virus of cynicism, the resistance to change, the negativity, that I'm doing do the work around because I know this project's going to fail or this change initiative isn't going to work. So all of these behaviours are often the unseen, the things that are under that waterline that we're not paying attention to. And it's those things that the unseen behaviours and the unseen viruses, those are the ones that are impacting results. And those are the leverages that are not leading us to success. So we're going to have a look at what that looks like together. Okay, right, I've got a video time. Oh, yes, everybody looks really excited about that. What I'd love you to do is just find someone to work with. So that could be the person you're sitting next to. If you want to work in a group of 3, I don't mind. Talk to the person you're next to. Give them a quick hello. I know I haven't got time for you to do any sort of group hugs or anything, but decide with the person you're sitting next to who's going to be person A and who's going to be person B. Just make that decision now. Okay, hands up, who's person A? Hands up the A's, the A team. Okay, person A or people A, what I'd like you to do is when you watch this video, it's only going to run for about 1.5 minutes. When you watch this video, I would like you to look at the video through the eyes of the gentleman in the green shirt, who is Bruce, okay? Bruce is a senior project manager. He is the sole sponsor. This is a very, very high project that he's working on, high-profile project. He's working on it. He's in charge of it. And a couple of days ago, he was called in by the senior exec team, all the top bananas in his organisation, who said to him, you need to bring that project in early. Okay? So he agreed, steps out of the meeting, and thinks, better let Michelle know. So person B, you're now going to look at this video through the eyes of Michelle. You have just been promoted. You are enthusiastic. You are dedicated to this project. You are the feasibility expert. And you know absolutely nothing about the decision being changed until this moment. Okay? So watch, if you wouldn't mind, indulge me if you don't mind, watch the video through the eyes of your characters. When the video finishes, it's going to finish with Bruce saying something to Michelle. And so all the Michelles in the room, if you would be so kind, take a long, hard stare into the eyes of your Bruce that's sitting next to you, if you don't mind. And what I'd love you to do is I would love you to respond to what he's just said to you. Talk from the heart, okay? There's no accountability here. No one's going to judge you. You can just be free. Okay, and you're all going to be talking at once. And I'm going to run it for about 20 seconds. And then, Bruce, if you want to sort of reply to what your Michelle said, you can do that as well. And then I'm going to call time. And then we're just going to have a quick debrief before we move on to the next slide. So here we go then. This is Bruce and Michelle talking about the change of the deadline, about the project.
Well, your team said over a week to come up with a plan. How long do you think it'll take to bring this project in?
It'll take just over 6 months. 6 months and a week, to be precise. Is that what you were thinking?
Well, this may be a stretch, but I was thinking we finish the project by the end of the quarter.
Well, it's a good thing we're talking about it now, before we've made any commitments, because there's no way to finish it by then. That's half the usual time.
Well, that's why I brought you onto this job in the first place. You have a way to do the impossible.
Well, thanks for the confidence, but there's just no way to get it done. This is really impossible.
Perhaps I didn't make myself clear enough on how important this is. We're not here to argue about what's possible. It's your job to figure this out and get it done by the end of the quarter. Project launches are at stake here. And besides, I've already agreed to the date. The accelerated schedules are already in the master plan, and everyone's counting on us.
Wait a minute. You've already made a commitment? You agreed to a deadline before talking to me about whether or not it was even feasible?
Management needs this to happen in order for us to hit plan. Are you forgetting how hard I worked to get you promoted to this position? You know what I said about you? I said you were a team player. Was I mistaken?
EastEnders music right now, please. Okay, thank you very much. Okay then, Michelle, this is your chance. Turn to your Bruce and just share what you think and feel. And this is the bit where just as you're warming up, I bring you all back together again. I am sorry about that. May I bring us back together? May I bring us back together? You see, that's got you warmed up now for the rest of the afternoon, hasn't it? Well, if we are saying, and the concept that I'm here to talk to you about is, would you describe that as a crucial conversation? Yeah. Yes. What's crucial about it? That there's a very, very strong chance now, isn't there, that the project result may not happen. There's some consequences that we need to bear in mind. Yeah. So there's the project we need to think about. What else do we need to think about?
Well, there is a trust relationship there that is breaking.
Absolutely. That relationship with your manager and the relationship between the manager and the director. I mean, those are kind of really crucial relationships, aren't they? So what we're saying is when it's high stakes, so when something is very, very important, could be very important to you, but you don't really know whether it's important to the other person. We are going to make the assumption that these two really care about the project, okay? When it's about high stakes and perhaps an opposing opinion is coming into the mix, when those two elements are at play, that is where we see some strong emotions. Now, there are some people that will externalise those emotions. There are some people that will internalise. Hands up the externalisers in the room. Who's a bit of an externaliser? They speak out, they transfer, okay? Who's more of an internaliser? Who has no idea what I'm talking about? Okay, all right. So, and I think that's what we tend to overlook, that when we see no expression in someone's face, or they say nothing, that they are giving us their unspoken approval. And maybe they are, but we get that nod or we get the look and we just move on because we're very, very busy and we're very task focused and we've got to get on with it. But we're missing some key signals in some classic human behaviour. Okay, so Michelle, what could she do now? She could get rather angry, couldn't she, about it? Go on, who got angry with their Bruce? Oh. Who actually resigned? No, not quite. Who really told their Bruce what they really thought? A couple of people around the room, okay. She could dwell on the problem for a while, couldn't she? Think it through, maybe not say anything at the time, maybe go and get some advice. Anybody go home after a hard day at work to their lovely families or their other halves and go, you'll never guess what happened today? Any of that going on around the room, or do you keep it all self-contained? So she could do that. She could just have it mulling over in her head and not actually do anything. She could do some unnecessary work. I mean, she could agree to do it, stress herself out, stress her team out, make it happen, maybe do the workaround just to kind of make it happen. She could just go back and complain to other people. And in some of the research that we've looked at, these are some of the percentages in some of the data that we can give you in detail or point you in the right direction if you'd like to understand some of the white papers on some of these topics. But we're saying that instead of actually having the conversation at that moment about what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable, about the differing expectations, then everything is just heading towards a very downward spiral. And that's what we want to try and change. And if we think about it, there we have, in that slide alone, references to our three viruses of silence, cynicism, and collusion. Okay. We studied 1,025 people in one particular study, managers and employees, and we asked them to tell us when, stories of their most frightening or their frustrated stories across the organisations where they had been put in maybe a position similar to Michelle, or even Bruce had a crucial conversation at one point. Where was Bruce's crucial moment? In the boardroom. Because he could have said, well, let me just check I want to check with the feasibility team before I make a commitment. We might be able to deliver on this, but it might be that the quality could be impacted, and I don't want to commit to something that I can't deliver to a very high spec. We asked this sample of individuals to tell us stories about challenges in the workplace and tell us their most frustrating, their most uncomfortable situations. And 72% of this data group reported instances where they just didn't say anything. And it is that say nothing, people think it's okay. And if that's the result that you want, then carry on saying nothing. 68% when they were feeling that they were being, because, was Bruce disrespecting Michelle? If you were Michelle, how would you be feeling right now? Oh, furious, yes. Yes, quite, because of why? What was it? Was there one particular thing that he did or that he said that really got your...
He didn't consult with her.
Is that what would really, that would really annoy you?
No, it's all about emotional blackmail.
Oh, we've got some emotion. Oh, yes. I mean, I don't have the ending for this little scenario, but I want you to know. I don't want you to know that she read the book, she went on a couple of courses and she nailed it. She got it sorted, but we just haven't got time to take you through that today. And this quota for these lovely people that in the 125 that shared their experiences, not speaking up and not holding peers to account. So, someone isn't pulling their weight as far as following health and safety standards, they're not following the processes, they're not delivering on their deadlines, and from peer to peer, no one's doing anything about it, expecting the manager to do something about it. Yes?
Is there not a question, though, that people might have tried and the top has failed to listen, and so you give up? So cynicism is, maybe you kind of got to a point of like, look, okay, they will not listen ever again. And
yes.
I don't bother anymore. So it's cynicism in some ways, but you have learned in some ways, like a dog, that you can bark and nothing will happen.
Yeah. And so if you continue so you've tried it once, it hasn't worked, and that's kind of put you off, which is what really happens. It's about opening your mind and trying maybe something in a different way or having a different conversation. Yeah. Because the crucial conversation now is not about the original topic, it's possibly about the fact that you've been in and you try to talk to someone and you sense that they're not listening to you, and that's the bit that you want to talk about. Because typically if you're stuck in a downward spiral with a crucial conversation with someone right now and it's not budging, you're probably having the wrong conversation. And I'm going to be on the stand-up, so if you want to come and talk to me or any of my colleagues about that later, we're here. Because typically that's what's happening. So we do it once, it fails, so we don't try again. And what we're saying here now is maybe it's about opening up our minds to see if we can look at it slightly differently. And I've got a skill coming up that might be helpful for you. Okay, so that's that data. Sorry, going backwards when I should be going forwards. So here's the facts, if you like. Out of that sample, people were saying that because that conversation didn't happen, or they tried it and it didn't work, and then they were put off about having it again, there's about £6,000 per conversation. And by the time it's been escalated to HR or more senior management, we're probably looking at a lot more than that. In lost time, in resources, and people just putting more energy into avoiding the conversation than actually having it. And to keep all that in, that can't be good for us at all. You're just going to burn yourself out. Okay, so let me just bring you a little bit of when I learnt this skill, and I'd love to spend the rest of the day taking you through 9 principles and 17 skills that cover off how you prepare and how you manage and how you act on a crucial conversation or to improve results. this is just a quick skill, a thinking skill, something for you to take away with you today. This is from, some of you may have heard of a behavioural psychologist called Chris Agiris, who discovered that when we communicate, sometimes there is a mismatch between what we're actually saying and what our non-verbals are giving off. And you know, have you ever been up to someone and said, asked them to do something for you, and they've gone, yeah, okay. But you know that in their head they're saying no. But you just delegate the task to them anyway. So he has labelled this through his work around what he calls the ladder of inference, and it's all about the mismatch of communication. So what we're saying here is our path to action, human behaviour, we see and hear things. Would you agree? Yeah, well, I think we can happily agree that we've probably got something like 40 odd people sitting down. I don't know the exact number, and there are 2 of us standing in this room. For me, that's the factual information. We're all seeing that. Where we might differ would be the story that we might attach to the 40 people sitting and the 2 people standing. And we could probably go around the room, we're not going to do this, but we could go around the room and we could probably get 40, 50, 42, 43 different views of the judgments that we're making on each other, the conclusions that we're drawing as we look and listen to each other, the perceptions that we've created, the impressions that we've created. And when we sit in a negative, so that's where your mind talk is, and that's where your motive sits. So when something happens and you decide, am I going to speak up about it? Am I not going to speak up about it? It will all depend on what you really, really want to do. If you're going to go into a conversation so that you win the conversation, so that you can punish the person, so that you can get one over on the person, whatever you say, whether you say the right words or not, that person's got some observation skills. They will know that you do not mean it. And I don't know what, for the people in the audience that English isn't your first language, I think what we find in English is that we don't always say what we mean. We like to talk around the topic a bit before we get there. And I think that when we have lack of clarity, that's where people can't be sure that they're psychologically safe with you. Because if you can be very clear on your goal for the conversation and why you want to have it, and you believe that those are productive reasons, so to learn, to provide clarity, to build the relationship, when people can sense that, that is when they're going to open up to you. With clarity comes psychological safety. The story creates the feelings. So if you're telling yourself a negative story about something going on at the moment, I'm going to ask you to open your mind, and are there other reasons why this person is doing what they're doing? Because we associate that to personal motive, but it could be very many other things. Could be some personal influence, could be some social influence, could be some structural influences at play. And if the emotions aren't kept in check, then you will act. You will either get angry or you will say nothing. You will either collude or you will be resistant. Okay. What we notice, that if we can go into crucial conversations and open up with facts, so retrace your path, because when we are experienced, when we are intelligent, when we have competence, when we have done it before, when we are intuitive, who thinks they're a very intuitive person? When you are intuitive, or you believe you're intuitive, you think you know why people do what they do. And so you believe that your opinions, your stories are facts, when actually they probably aren't. They're just stories. So this was just absolutely incredible for me when I first came across it, because I live in my imagination a lot. So to have to retrace my steps to find the facts. Some of you will do that very naturally. Well done, you've got raw talent. The rest of us had to learn it, or I definitely had to learn it, to understand that go back to what I first saw and what I first heard, and go and check it out. Your story might be true, but it might not. So don't act on it if it's not if you're not clear and it's not the truth. So I've mentioned these 3 viruses: the silence, the collusion, the resistance, the cynicism. And so here are, ladies and gentlemen, your 3 antidotes. Because, you know, I couldn't turn up here without offering you a solution to the problem that I know that you know about and I know about. So if you believe that in all your organisation there is a culture of massive silence, then it's crucial conversations. And if it's accountability, then it's crucial accountability. And if you think that change isn't happening as quickly or as positively as it needs to be, then it's influencer. Okay, and before I ask for any of your questions then, that's how we do it. We can either deliver the training live or online live or online. And just to give you a bit of a taste of some of the materials that come along with some of the courses that we deliver, we've got some what I think are very clean and beautifully fresh learning materials. So if you haven't got a book already, I'm with Manuela and I'm in the reception area. So all we would like is if you part with your most precious email address, you can get a book, and that will give you, a rundown on all the 9 principles and the 17 skills. And I've talked enough. Has anybody got a question? Anything they wanted to just check in with me about anything? Yes.
Is there a way to facilitate this when you're maybe midway through a crucial project and it's not on track, it's not going how it needs to be?
Yeah. So you're saying the project's been up and running, it's not working, and someone brave enough, courageous enough might want to go, can we just stop and backtrack?
Which we've done.
Okay. Okay.
It's almost like, how do we make sure those conversations keep
Yeah.
going?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, I mean, often we've stepped in to. I mean, most people have got ongoing projects, and so definitely there is a way that you could learn, because these are learnable, repeatable skills. So there's definitely a way that can happen. Anything else?
I was going to say that, the Frank and Michelle, is it?
Yeah.
I had a boss once who had that sort of thing put on, and he had a brilliant way of handling it.
Oh.
And he said, yeah, of course we can. Of course we can do that.
Yeah.
But if we do,
Yeah.
it'll impact on quality, it'll impact
Yeah.
on cost.
Yeah.
But it's yours, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So just kind of like turned it around. Yeah, yeah. And I think if that conversation is happening, for all of us, we've all got different things that we would be frustrated about. Some of us, it would be that I wasn't included in the decision. Some people, it wouldn't have been like the tone of his voice. For some of you, it wouldn't have been the way that maybe he was holding you to ransom a bit. And I think that's, if you're going to have a crucial conversation, you own it, you lead it, because you're the one that is trying to bridge the gap between your expectation and the observation of what actually has happened. And if sometimes if you don't deal with it then and there, it just goes round and round and round. Yes.
Do you have any advice for people that are talking to the most senior person in that example? Imagine, I forgot the name of the lady in the blue shirt.
Right.
Michelle. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you were Michelle, but the person that was talking to you was the decision maker.
Yeah.
Was the most senior person that you physically can go to.
Yeah.
The next one up is the board.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people? The direct report there, not the manager.
Okay, so for the direct report, I think we could all. Well, I'm going to make this assumption that often, if someone fairly senior says this is the way, but the key decision makers, the key stakeholders, if they say this is the way we're going to do it, then it's going to be done. What I would probably advise would be, if she's going to work on another project with him, that they review some new expectations. That says, I'm your feasibility manager. You've promoted me because you wanted my support. I can't support you to the best of my ability and do my job properly if you shut me out of decisions. And I'm wondering next time, can I be part of it? Because he could have quite easily gone up to her after that first meeting, couldn't he? At the coffee, anyone, he could have gone, Michelle, I know I've done something, I know I've made this decision without you, it has to be done. Can we do it together? Rather than that scenario, him going, you're doing it. Yeah, so I think it's like, you might not be able to resolve it then and there, but you could certainly have a crucial conversation to reset some expectations for next time. Otherwise, the behaviour just continues. Yeah. Any other observations, questions? Or are you all like ready for your next session? Is that what you were like eating too much or whatever? I don't even know how I'm doing for time. I think we're kind of more or less done. So a couple of things then. First of all, thank you very, very much for coming along and for engaging and indulging and asking questions and getting involved. I do appreciate that. So we are in reception. We've got some books up for grabs. We've got contacts, and I'm hanging around if anybody wanted to come and talk to me about some of their crucial conversations or accountability conversations. I'll be absolutely delighted to give you any support or any help that you might need.